Hello, and welcome to Words of Hope, Mental Health Conversations. We're really delighted that you've joined with us. This talk is the second in a series where we're looking at some of the areas of life that can impact our mental health. Last week we looked at stress, and this week we're going to look at anxiety. Joyce will be doing a talk and giving us information about what anxiety is, how it affects us, and some strategies to be able to deal with it. And then that'll be followed up by a question and answer panel, and we'll be able to delve a little bit deeper into the subject. We hope that you can stay and join with us for that as well. If you know someone who's struggling with anxiety, or you know someone that will really benefit from hearing this talk, please feel free to like, to share, to comment, to get in touch, and let's spread the hope. Let's be a help to as many people as we possibly can be. But for now, we're going to hand over to Julie as she talks about anxiety.
Hi everybody, so thanks Alistair for that lovely welcome, and thanks for joining us this evening. Tonight's talk, as you might have heard there, is about anxiety. So I'm very briefly going to look at what anxiety is, how it affects us, and hopefully give you some strategies that might help you if you struggle with anxiety. So what is anxiety? Anxiety is a state of fear or apprehension resulting from a real or an imagined threat. And it's important to note there that it's a response to a real or an imagined threat. Okay, so let's have a look at this chart then that explains the physical symptoms of anxiety. So we'll start off in our thought life. So your thoughts in an anxious state are going to come very quickly, and that's really helpful if you're in a situation or a building where there's a fire that you need to get out quickly, you need to look for exits, you need to look for a window, you're trying to plan your escape. So your thoughts come really quickly to help you to find a way out and a way through. The next thing that happens once you have your anxious thought is that you have two little adrenal glands that you'll see there. They sit one on top of each kidney, and they release a substance called adrenaline. And once adrenaline gets into your bloodstream, it's the thing that makes you feel like this. You can feel really anxious. You won't be aware of it at all in a real and threatening situation, but in an imagined or perceived threatening situation, that's really uncomfortable. So the next thing then that happens in our bodies is that your palms can become cold and sweaty, and that's because our small blood vessels in our hands and feet will shut down intentionally to divert the blood to your vital organs. Also, one of the symptoms there that you'll see is that these large muscles here will tense, and that's to enable you to either stay and fight or to run very fast away from the threat or the danger. You will have butterflies, people talk about, in their tummy, and very uncomfortable feeling. So that's due to the overproduction of hydrochloric acid, which is the thing that breaks down your food in your tummy. So if you ingested poison, this would be very quickly broken down. So those symptoms are still really useful in danger, but not so useful in perceived or imagined threat. Your heart will beat faster. People get very aware of their heart beating. I can feel my heart beating in my chest. I feel my heart pumping. Your heart beats fast to get the blood flow going really quickly around your body to those vital organs. So it's a very protective mechanism. You can get a dry mouth. Again, you're not going to be eating a big sandwich if you're in a state of fear or a really threatening situation. So you won't need saliva to start that digestion process. So your mouth can become very dry. Changes in your vision. Your vision gets very acute. You can get very tunnel vision, and that you will only see the path ahead of you. So you will see the threat that is directly before you, and that's again a survival mechanism. So all of these symptoms then are what happens in our bodies physically when we're in a threatening situation, but also these are all the symptoms of anxiety. So those symptoms are all very helpful in a real threatening situation, not so helpful if it's an imagined or perceived threat that you have. So what can we do about that? You do not have to be at the mercy of this anxiety bully. And those are the words of hope. You do not have to be at the mercy of this anxiety bully. So we can learn some strategies to help us to manage or overcome these symptoms. And I'm going to look at 4 strategies that if you practice, they will help. But practice is the key here. So as we've already mentioned, our thoughts. So check out your thought life. You know, what is the anxious thought that's going on? So check it, then challenge it. Is it real or imagined? Are you worrying about something that might happen, something that has not yet happened, which is not real? It's imagined or perceived threat. And then change it. So check it, challenge it, and change it. I'm okay. I'm actually not in danger. I'm thinking about something anxiously. So check it, challenge it, and change it. One technique that people find very useful, especially in panic, which is extreme fear. And if we think of fear as false evidence appearing real, we can use a grounding technique. So in situations where there's extreme anxiety or panic, people can feel like they're actually going to die. They're going to have a heart attack. They're going to collapse. But they're not going to die. They're not going to have a heart attack. And they're not going to collapse. It's false evidence that appears real. They're having a panic attack. So our grounding technique is this: 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And this, I would encourage you to write it down, carry it with you so that you'll have it at all times should you need it. So 5, think of 5 things around you that you can see and call them out. So I can see camera, I can see the sound guy, I can see the cameraman, and I can see the seats around. So call out 5 things by name, speak them out. 4 things that you can touch. So I've got my pointer. You have things in front of you and around you that you can touch. And if you don't, you can actually touch your arms, touch your legs, touch your seat, feel your feet on the floor. So 4 things that you can touch. And then 3 things that you can hear. So you need to listen. So listen for 3 things that you can hear. And then number 2 things that you can smell. Well, I can smell my perfume that I've put on today, and I can also sense the smell in the room here. And the last one then, number 1, is take a long, slow, deep breath. And then let it out. So that's about our senses, because anxiety, as we've seen, is trapped in our senses. So we do body work to enable to release that and manage that. So a very simple breathing technique to slow things down, because anxiety is our on switch. We're going really fast, we're talking fast, we're thinking fast. So we need to slow things down. And a simple breathing technique you can use is 4-2-4. So breathe in for the count of 4, hold for 2, and breathe out for the count of 4. And practice that again and again. And finally, again, because anxiety is a very physical thing, a lot of body work is what you need. That will be helpful. So if you go to the gym, go for a run, evidence shows that anxiety is reduced by 40% with regular physical exercise. So get yourself out for a walk, or take yourself off for a cycle, a run, swim, whatever. Do something physical to get rid of the anxiety that you carry in your body. So there's another little simple thing that sometimes I share with people who are struggling with anxiety, and it's the physical removal of anxiety from your body. So you can do the Taylor Swift thing and shake it off, or you can do the 1 Peter 5 and 7 thing. Cast all your anxieties on the Lord, because He cares for you. So come with me while we cast this anxiety off. Okay. So we're just going to lean over, loosen everything up, and if you can imagine that you're just ridding your body of the anxiety that you feel and that is held in your muscles. So we're just going to clear that out. So we're going to lift it up, clear it up through the muscle groups, carry it up here. You've got this anxiety, and now you're going to cast it off. So hopefully, guys, if you practice those techniques, they will help. We'd love you to stay around for the Q&A after. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to take them. But thanks for looking in, and good luck with managing your anxiety.
Well, thank you, Julie, for your talk. Really, you managed to cram so much really good and helpful stuff into the short talk that you did do for us. But what we now get an opportunity to do is to unpack some of that. And we're joined by Maria and Cathal. And what I would love you guys to do is to just briefly introduce yourselves and let the guys know who's talking to them tonight. So let's go for, Maria, you tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, my name is Maria Gilpin. I am married to Mark, and I have 2 kids. We are currently leading worship in Portadown, Elam. I am a singer-songwriter, and yeah, that's pretty much all about me.
Excellent. Cathal?
My name is Paul Duffy from Castlebar Christian Fellowship, pastor there. And a lovely wife called Sharon. It was our anniversary yesterday, 24th. And we have 3 young adult children, 22, 20 and 18. So 1 girl, 2 boys. That's it. Nice to be with you.
Brilliant, brilliant. And Julie?
And I'm Julie. So I'm married to Roderick, and we have 4 adult kids as well, Cathal. We have 26, 25, 21 and 19. And we go to Portadown, Elam. I help look after pastoral there, and in my day job then I work as a therapist and a supervisor of counsellors.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Thanks, guys. And I should have said there, happy anniversary for yesterday then, Cathal, you and your wife. That's terrific. Okay, so during her talk, Julie talked about the symptoms of anxiety and even how that can progress into panic and even a panic attack. Maria, could you relate to some of the things that Julie was talking about?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Actually, not that long ago, I took a panic attack. Probably one of the worst experiences I've had. It was awful. It was just that everything that Julie was saying, you know, I had a tight chest and I felt like I was going to have a heart attack. My actual mind went to I was going to have a heart attack. Awful experience. And then even after that experience, after that riding that wave, the next couple of days even just felt really, it was even that felt so low and all over the place. So yeah, everything that she had said, definitely I can relate to. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I suppose, Cathal, my question to you would be, can anybody struggle with anxiety?
I think we all struggle, Alistair, with anxiety at some shape or form throughout our lives. Just even as in the talk, it is a natural inbuilt thing that when it works well and when it's positive, it's good. But I suppose in most of our cases, it's the negative side of anxiety that we experience, and that can happen to us to various degrees. You know, it can just left field life, you know, things hit us and that's our response. And I think even as a matter of even from the faith perspective, you know, if you look at the scriptures, Elijah was one of those prime examples. We often think of him in the case of depression, but if you look at his whole response to the difficult situation he experienced, you know, it was flight, it was fright, it was panic. You know, he was dealing with real situation, and I'm sure he was dealing with imaginary situations as well. And I suppose even the whole book of Psalms in the center of the Bible there, it's an awful lot of it is anxious stuff that's being brought to God, you know. So I don't want to make a virtue of anxiety, but it's very real, and it's there in the Bible, and it's part of our lives, you know. So, you know.
Yeah. And typically, what kind of things do people get anxious about?
A whole range of things. It depends on and from mild anxiety to severe anxiety, I think a lot of to do is with something of the unknown. It can be a sense of loss, loss of purpose, loss of relationship, loss of job, loss of health. I think there's so many different things that hit us in life. Unknown this year is an example, isn't it? Who'd have known? You know, the unknown, and we're presented with a lot of unknowns, and how do we deal with them? How do we cope with them? How, you know? So, yeah. I haven't exhausted my thinking on that, but I think we're just blindsided by a lot of things in life, and that can affect us differently. Some people, like sometimes we're like we look like the proverbial duck, calm on the surface, but paddling like mad beneath. And then I suppose I was brought up to believe that some people are warriors, and some people nearly seem to be a little bit more hardwired for anxiety, worry and anxiety. I don't know if that's totally true, but it appears that way. But I think we all suffer from anxiety. It's not what to do with it then, you know.
Yeah. And I think, as you mentioned, this year certainly will have exacerbated even the person that tends not to worry too much. There's been so much thrown into the mix. And so right on that scale of people that you're talking about, the worry of health, the worry of finance and our economy and what's going to happen next. And, there's definitely been a huge boulder thrown into the pond of a lot of our lives, which then can exacerbate that. So what do you think are some of the biggest challenges for those journeying through anxiety?
I suppose the big challenge is, they're using the term roadmap these days a lot, but the roadmap for me personally, how do I get out of this? Is this a dead end? The proverbial light at the end of the tunnel. Is it an oncoming train? Is there a light at the end of the tunnel? It varies from person to person and situation to situation, and I think it's an unpleasant place to be. So we do want to get out of it. We don't enjoy being anxious. We want relief. We want to get out of it. So so that's. And the intensity, like sometimes in panic attacks or whatever, or the mild thing that can get out of proportion. Depends on the time. If you're anxious during the nighttime and losing your sleep, do you toss and turn, or do you get up and go downstairs and make yourself a hot chocolate and read and pray and think, if I'm going to be up, I might as well do something useful while I'm awake, So, I mean, and there's all these challenges for each one of us,
Yeah.
I don't know if I give an exhaustive answer there.
So, no, that's really good. Thank you. And I think, obviously, that part of what we do want to move into, and you've transitioned as well into that in terms of how do we deal with it then? So it's there. Many people deal with it. It's probably exacerbated through the events of this year and everything that's going on there. Never mind everything else that we have to try and manage and balance within life.
Yeah.
So, Julie, as we move into then some of the techniques and strategies that help us deal with anxiety, and I love the term that you used about this bully of anxiety. I thought that was a brilliant term to use. As we unpack some of the strategies, I'm going to divide them into three. I'm going to talk about the physical, the mental, and even then we'll develop into the spiritual. So as we think about the physical, you talked a lot about grounding techniques. Now, that might be new language for some people. But I know what I think the answer is, but I'm going to ask you for the rest of the folks that are watching. These things really work.
Yeah.
And why do they work?
Well, yes, they do work. The evidence would say that they work. And I think, just what we were talking about, anxiety is very physical and you feel it in your senses. So grounding techniques are using your senses, which really bring you back to here and now. One of the things about anxiety is that it's future orientated. So your threat or your worry is in the future. For example, what if I mess up? what if I forget how to answer this question that Alistair just asked me? What if I forget? So which is very likely to happen, but but I'll ground myself and get back to the here and now. And that the grounding techniques really, if you think of a tree planted, it has got big, deep roots down into the ground. And with anxiety, you're not aware of that and start to feel very free floating. And that's one of the terms they use to describe anxiety, like this free floating anxiety where it comes out of nowhere. So grounding techniques bring you back to here and now, what's happening in this moment. It's not future orientated. You're not going off in your thoughts or in your feelings. It's some scenario in your head. I think Charlotte had mentioned about catastrophizing in their talk a couple of weeks ago there. So, and that's an anxiety situation where there's the worst case scenario. You see yourself not being able to speak. You see yourself people judging you very negatively. So all of those things don't make you feel very comfortable, and they start that whole physical set of symptoms going off in your body. So the grounding techniques then, they're reducing that and bringing you back to bang, here and now. You're not in the worst case scenario. Actually, this is where you are. This is what's happening now.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it's absolutely brilliant. And it's really helpful. And I think until you've actually experienced it work for yourself, or you've seen it work, so I know for me in training, as you have to do, training for counselling, you have to do 20 hours and you have to go to counselling yourself. And I know for me, I went in one day in quite a state. I was very stressed, very anxious, and went through a lot of those grounding techniques and come out skipping. And I would never have believed unless I'd experienced really the impact of those. And, I would use some of those on our wee boy. Our wee boy would get himself really worked up and crying. And first of all, I tried the alpha male. Now stop it, and it just made things worse. But just simply asking him to find the blue in the room, or, just little things like that. And it just really, really worked. And there's a whole load of work, even if people who are watching, we probably just don't have time to develop on the neuroscience end of that and what's happening in your brain and your whole there's the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system when you're doing that breathing technique. So we don't have time probably to develop it, but for those of you who are watching, do have a wee look into some of those things. It's not and I would be more skeptical probably than most when we were training and they were breathe in, breathe out. And I was thinking, seriously, guys? But actually, whenever they taught us the science behind it and how it works, it's really incredible how it works. Do you have anything to add to that, Julie?
I think one of the things around anxiety is education. And, it's not to try and impress anybody, but when you understand what's actually going on and what happens, it can make you understand, give you a bit of insight into why the techniques work and why we do them. And it's not just, take a big deep breath. You're taking a big deep breath because you're addressing the imbalance of oxygen and carbon dioxide in your breath, so you're regulating that again, which is really important. So yes, I think I think Vicky had mentioned in her Q&A last week when Steph did that brilliant talk on stress about the limbic system and the structures in the brain. Like, the brain's fascinating, the brain is incredible, and we never understand it fully, but certainly in terms of stress, anxiety, trauma, you have this system called the limbic system. So you have a structure at the back of your brain called your hypothalamus, and that's about memories. That anything that happens to you, the hypothalamus will tag it. That's a good memory, that's a bad memory, whatever. And then deep in your brain, you have a little structure called the amygdala, sometimes known as the fear center, and that's where all your emotions are played out there. And then this prefrontal cortex in the brain is your rational mind. That's where you have access to If you make a bad decision, your rational mind will say, no, that's not a good thing, Julie. So but in anxiety and stress, that gets shut off. So it's just this limbic system, the fear center, that's really firing off. And again, your breathing techniques and your grounding techniques just all settle that again. So yeah, the science is fascinating.
Yeah.
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 Guess what part of training I loved? Okay, so Cathal, Julie talked about some techniques that can help us in dealing with fear and anxiety in our minds, or sort of our mental approach to that. And she really handily, she put it in 3 C's, which was really great. There's a preacher in there, Julie, clearly. Okay, but it was check it, challenge it, and change it.
Yeah.
So, do you agree with what Julie's saying? And could you maybe even help somebody that's watching how they might put that process into play?
No, I found that very, very helpful. I think it's the idea too in scripture that, we're, as a people, we're spirit, soul, and body. We're integrated in that way that, we shouldn't just put spirituality out there and our physicality and various systems of the body in separate compartments. We're one unity. So what our thinking does affect, and physically, all that interchange of who we are affects the other part of our lives. So yeah, no, I was trying to think through it and try and do something, just try and think through on some of the grounding techniques there. But check it. Yeah, is it false? Is it real? Is it, my imagination couldn't go a bit wild at times, and crossing all my bridges before I come to them, and trying to sort out life before I arrive there, rather than being in the now. And that acronym of fear, FEAR, false evidence appearing real. I think we do need to check it out and kind of say, is this true? I had a saying years ago. It was, what was it again? Today is the tomorrow I worried about yesterday, and it didn't happen. So I think we can anticipate an awful lot of stuff in the coming days, and the next day it wasn't really real. So checking out that it's is this real or is it false, and thinking through it a little bit on that, trying to use the rational side of our brain, maybe slowing down a bit and thinking, but also challenging it. That is a challenge. But I think reaffirming truths into our lives is part of the answer to that, and that's part of the process of change as well. I just find, even because I know that in my life I have thought patterns, and sometimes they can be a bit of a roundabout, going round and round and round, a loop, and that I need to kind of change that, get a different kind of, I was going to say cassette tape, but that sounds like an antique to some people these days. But just changing my thought processes, and reaffirming things into my own life. Even I think the first thing in the morning can be the challenge for an awful lot of us as people, that the stuff that can flood into our heads as we become conscious, that I think, to affirm things that are true, like, to myself, often I say, the steadfast love of the Lord never ceases, his mercies never come to an end, they are new every morning, great is your faithfulness. And just to affirm that to my life, the kind of things we're saying to ourselves, I think that's very important. And I'll have to look again at some of the grounding techniques. I do remember them. I was trying them out earlier on. They were very, very good. But even that thing of taking a deep breath and, just slowing down my thinking, my thoughts, my panic, whatever, I found very helpful.
Yeah.
And it's good.
Yeah. No, it's really good. Thank you, Cathal.
Yeah.
And I think that I remember hearing somebody talk about how, we're actually in control of our thoughts. you know, that we don't have to, and what you're saying there about making sure the truth comes in.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of what the challenge it is, you know, is making sure we're getting truth in. And I suppose that's for us, and all of us are from a faith background. Not everybody watching will be, but as we talk about that, you know, for me, the Bible is a really helpful tool for that. Excuse me. You know, so for example, there was a period of time whenever I was struggling with just a bit of worry around a particular issue, and every time it came in, and you play the what if game. Do you ever? I don't know whether you it's like what if that, what if that, what if that, and you just, and nobody ever wins that game. It just gets worse case scenario, doesn't it? And so whenever that was going on in my mind, and I started to learn to replace it with probably one of my favorite scriptures now, which is Isaiah 26:3, which is, he will keep in perfect peace him whose mind is steadfast and who trusts in you. And I found that a real wrestle, because I was having a challenge. No, God's going to keep me in perfect peace. And it was this real battle between the negative thought and the truth, and really just holding on to that. And so the fact that I can spill that off shows you how much I've had to battle with that in my own mind at times. But it's amazing how much that brings peace, not just rattling off a memory verse, but believing what it says.
Yeah.
You know, and actually the crux of it saying, okay, God, this is worrying out there, but I trust you.
Yeah.
I trust you. I trust you. I find myself having to go through that to win the mental battle, as you say, you know. So, okay. So, and I love what you said as well, Cathal, about we're integrated beings. So this isn't just a physical or an emotional, mental, or even just even physical exercise. We believe in right thinking, but we need to join it all together. And that's where we come to the point, Maria, where I would just love you to talk to us a little bit about how can someone tackle anxiety from a spiritual point of view?
Well, for me, my experience, like Julie's video was so helpful, and even what you guys are saying today. I mean, for me, my panic attack came from left field. It was, I wouldn't, well, as you say, we all suffer from anxiety at some level, but that was never ever really an issue for me until that moment where that happened with me. I think what experience through it, it wasn't until the next day till I really sat and thought, my goodness, God, like, what are you saying here? And even through Julie's video, like when she was saying about the grounding and stuff, what I got from that was God was saying, I am the God of the supernatural, but I'm also God of the practical. You know, it's good to do these practical things. We need these type of things to kind of ground ourselves, and it was so helpful. But for me, spiritually, when I was in the middle of that panic attack, my head was everywhere where I couldn't think straight. It was not until the next day where I sat back and I thought, my goodness, that was awful, and was just so low that next day. And I went to my word, I went to the word and went to scriptures. And obviously my first reaction to everything when I worry about something is worship. I mean, that's the go-to for me. It's always has been, even from I was a child, it's always been music. And so for me it was worship. And I just remember singing the words, which is actually in Psalm 27, and it says, though the storm rages over me, yet I will still be confident. It's talking about the confidence in God, and no matter what's happening, that I will be confident in him. So the next time, if it ever happens again, if it doesn't, but I know that I have the confidence that God has it under control. But sometimes we just have to ride the wave, be in the practical and use it, because God gives us a practical as well as the supernatural. So if that makes sense.
That's very good. Thank you. Any of you guys, anything to add to that about how being a follower of Jesus can help us in this journey through anxiety?
Yeah, I think, you know, something you were saying, Alistair, about truth, you know, because anxiety is it's a false perception, you know, that everything's going to be a disaster or something wrong, you know, and there's so many scriptures to help us in that battle with truth, know the truth. And I just think even in our thought life, you know, scriptures have been transformed by the mind. take every thought captive to the obedience of Christ, which for me is the same, only different as check it, challenge it, change it. Those kind of techniques. So there's nothing new the world has to learn that hasn't been offered in Scripture in terms of helping people and managing anxiety, stress. But we live in a world where there are lots of fears and anxiety. So the Scripture about whatever is true and noble and worthy of praise, dwell on these things. And I think that the Lord is very aware of what anxiety is when He says, "Do not be anxious about anything." And through prayer, and prayer is about being still and having your focus on Him. And that's what we do when we're treating anxiety. When I work with people, is trying to get them to be still and to shift their focus onto other things. So I think there's an awful lot in Scripture that we can offer to people of faith. And one of the things that I hear from believers in anxiety is that there's this dreadful fear that they would come filled with fear about not being able to hear God. I can't hear Him. Does that mean I'm backslidden? Does that mean I'm not really saved? And it's just the whole anxiety process, starting off in a believer's life. They experience that, and it has a spiritual manifestation in that way, where people think they can't hear God. And you can't hear because you're focused on catastrophizing, what I'm not saved, what if you're on that train already, you're on it. So you get the grounding, and that can be prayer. There's lots of things I think that faith has to offer for people suffering with anxiety as well.
Do you need to add anything to that, Cathal?
Yeah, the whole thing of even doing physical stuff, like I found over the last number of weeks, we have a lovely greenway near us, and just getting out and walking and enjoying creation and thanking the Lord for it, and just for just keeping our own health, physicality, doing a bit of brisk walk or whatever. It's really does help, and just getting out and getting the fresh air into our lungs, because we can be behind the screen a lot or whatever, and it's just that there is another world apart from the digital world. I'm thankful for it, but just getting out there and just enjoying creation and the beauty of it, and just a song might come to mind about praising God, and you do feel better as a result. And I think it gives a different perspective to your day and the situations that we think are so big at times, which come our way and are bound to come our way and will come our way while we're alive in this world, Yeah.
It's great. Okay, so we're almost done. I've just one more question, and it's really for those who are watching, who they themselves maybe are struggling with anxiety, but maybe someone around them is. And my question, Julie, is how can someone in that position help? I know for me, I had somebody close to me who was struggling with anxiety, and I knew better. I suppose one of the things I did was I just put a lot of energy around it. And I'll not go into everything that I was doing, but I was trying to fix it, I was trying to sort it, trying to do anything, and it just didn't seem to work. And yet, and you just feel a bit, I don't know what to do here. Can you give a bit of hope to those who are maybe living with someone or connected with someone who's struggling? How can they help?
For me, I think education, show them the talk about the physical symptoms, because I think education is a crucial part of people recovering or managing anxiety. When you understand what is happening, then your awareness around it increases. And once you know something, you can't not know it. So once you learn some techniques and grounding techniques, those things will become automatic. It's not that you have to consciously think doing it forever. Once you get in their way with practice of the breath work, so important, because that's your off switch. You know, if anxiety is your foot on the accelerator, your breath work is your foot on the brake. And once you learn some simple breathing techniques, I know the reports that come back to me from clients or people that you're supporting in this situation is, you know, they'll say things like, I've been breathing all week, it's great. You're thinking, that's positive. Because they've been paying attention to it. So paying attention to breath work. And, you know, for somebody who's struggling, it's really that, you know, anxiety is an overestimation of danger and an underestimation of people's ability to cope. So we want to reassure them that that they've managed every anxious and affirmations. But it's in education, I think there's a great quote Viktor Frankl had said around between the stimulus and the response is space, and in that space we have the power to choose our response. So between the stimulus and response is a space, and in that space we have the power to choose our response. So we either respond by going with the anxiety, or actually I feel awful, this feels dreadful, but I'm going to do some breathing work. I'm going to do some casting off work, shaking off work. I'm going to do something physical. I'm going to try and do something different so that you get a different outcome.
No, thank you so much. That's brilliant. And I was going to ask you if you'll sing a bit more Taylor Swift for us. So no, honestly, Julie, thank you so very much. And you know, for those people who are watching today, first of all, once again, thanks for tuning in and thanks for staying to the end. And if you have found this helpful, we would love for you to share it with someone. You maybe know someone that's struggling with anxiety. Please do share it with them. And if you're really in a place and you don't know where to look for help, please get in touch with us and we will point you into the right direction and get you the help that you need at info@emchurchireland.com, and we will get back to you. Please remember that we've got another 2 subjects to go. We're going to be looking at relationships next week with John and Vicky, and I think that'll be a really good one. Many of us have been locked down with the same people for quite a period of time, so they're going to look at relationships. And then the following week, we're going to look at a really serious subject of obviously all of them are, but we're going to be looking at loss. So please do continue to connect in with us and share. And again, if you need any help whatsoever, please do get in touch. But for now, thanks for being with us and God bless.
Bye now.